All right, let's dive into a question that sounds pretty simple on the surface, but has actually tied legal experts in knots for, well, centuries. And believe it or not, the answer might just be hiding in this really clever idea called the bracket theory. So here it is, the big question. Is a corporation a person? I mean, we hear this term corporate personhood all the time, but what on earth does it actually mean? Can a company really have rights and duties, just like you or me? Okay, let's make this feel a bit more real. Imagine a company, we'll just call it X& and Co., owes you some money. Who do you actually go to get paid? The CEO? All the shareholders? The building they work in? See, this is the exact kind of problem the law has to figure out. And that brings us right to the heart of it all, what I like to call the legal person puzzle. Now, the law has a special name for this whole thing, a juristic person. It's basically a legal fiction, right? A concept that was invented to let groups of people act like a single unit. But calling it a person, well, that's where all the confusion and some really interesting theories get started. So, how in the world do we solve this puzzle? Well, one of the most, I think, elegant solutions came from a German jurist way back in the 19th century, and it's called Eyring's bracket theory. The main idea here is actually surprisingly simple. This theory says that a juristic person isn't real. Nope, it's not a living, breathing thing. It's just a symbol, a kind of legal shorthand. And the guy who came up with it, Eyring, he put it just perfectly. He said the law is simply putting a bracket on the members in order to treat them as a unit. That's it. That's the whole trick right there. The logic is really straightforward. You start with a group of actual people, right? Human beings. Then the law just draws this symbolic bracket around them. And boom, just like that, this group inside the bracket can now be treated as a single thing. Our company, X& Co. This takes us to the real philosophical core of the theory, this idea that only humans are actually real. You see, the bracket theory works on this one single fundamental assumption. The only entities that have real rights and real duties and, consciousness are the human beings inside that symbolic bracket. The corporation itself? It's just a tool they're using. And Eyring wasn't the only one thinking this way. Another legal scholar, Hofheld, had a really similar take. So where Eyring called the corporation a symbol, Hofheld saw it as a creation of arbitrary rules of procedure. Kind of like two sides of the same coin when you think about it. So here's the bottom line. Whether you call it a symbol or a rule of procedure, both of these thinkers completely agreed that when you get right down to it, all the claims, all the duties, all the responsibilities, they ultimately belong to the human beings involved. The corporation is just the mechanism. Okay, but as elegant as this theory is, it's not perfect. So now, let's go looking for the cracks in the bracket. Yeah, the theory starts to wobble in a few places. For example, if only the humans inside the bracket matter, then what about a foundation set up to protect animals? Or a foundation created for the benefit of all of humanity? It also gets criticized for just describing the situation without really telling us what the law should do. And that leads to its biggest flaw, which is this question right here. So when do the courts decide to lift the mask? When do they ignore the bracket and go after the actual people inside? This is, by far, the theory's biggest blind spot. It gives us this fantastic metaphor, but it offers zero guidance on when a court should just ignore the corporate fiction, what lawyers call lifting the corporate veil, to hold the individuals accountable. It just can't predict what's going to happen in the real world. So, if it has all these flaws, why are we even talking about it today? Let's take a look at why this theory still really matters. Because even with its limitations, it gives us a really powerful and clear way to think about this stuff. It frames the corporation not as some kind of mythical living being, but as something way more ordinary, just a useful label. At the end of the day, the theory argues that a corporation is just a label or container. It's a tool, one that's created by people, for people, so they can achieve some kind of shared goal. It really just demystifies the whole concept. And that leaves us with one final and I think really crucial question. If a company is just a bracket that we've drawn around a group of people, then who is truly responsible when that company causes harm? The theory suggests the answer isn't the symbol, but the people inside. And that is a thought worth holding on to.